Hello everyone, my name is Gerard de Pre. I'm from the Northwest University in South Africa, and today I'm going to teach you a little bit about Ninja, the online nematode tool that we often use to calculate nematode-based indices. Now I use it a lot because I'm a trained nematode ecologist and I have applied research in agricultural sciences. So we use it to, for example, study the impact of certain agricultural practices on soil ecosystem health. So it's just one of the examples or ways in which this tool can be used. Now, all right. So in this practical, I'm just going to show you how to access the tool, how to import data, do a bit of troubleshooting, and then also how to explore the data using the online interface, and ultimately how to export the data into another software program such as Excel. All right, so the simplest and easiest way for me to reach Ninja is simply to Google Ninja nematodes. And the first link that should pop up is the correct one. You can of course also use the official link, type that into the URL bar, but it's called Ninja Nematode Indicator Joint Analysis. Okay, so we're loading the web page. All right, so this is the landing page that you would find. That was just a notification indicating that it's real time. Now that's pretty important to know, because if you close this web page, your data and your results will be lost. So please make sure you export or copy and paste your data from this online interface before you close the web page. Okay, so it's pretty basic, pretty straightforward. This first web page, or the landing page that you get to, actually shows you just a basic outline of your data sheet, or how it should be ordered. So you can see here on the screen on the left, the first column in your Excel spreadsheet, column A, is whatever you want to name your sample. So the program is not going to use column A, it's really for your own purposes, and I'll show you a little bit later how that can also be useful. Column B is then the actual sample names that Ninja is going to report back to you on. So it says here, names of treatments or sampling sites should be ordered alphabetically. In my opinion, I don't find that a big issue, but it's probably best to do as they advise. So something that I think is important to understand already now is that if you have multiple samples entered with the same name in column B specifically, so here we have control, 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 site A, site A, site A, and so on, then Ninja will actually work out the average of that, which it considers as a treatment. So it'll consider control, control, control as 3 different replicates, and then it will calculate the average and actually give you very basic stats. And in this case, it will be ANOVA stats, but just so that you know, that's important. So again, if you want to have the results reported as individual samples, you could name it control 1, control 2, control 3, or whatever unique identifier that you want, and it will report those samples individually. Okay, so then you order from column C, column D, column E, and so forth. You simply put in names of taxa, usually at genus or family level. It does not have to be alphabetical going from C onwards. However, it's probably easier to do it that way just for yourself. Right, and then lastly, it's important to understand that it should be normalized. So in other words, the counts that you have in your sheet should be standardized per volume or per mass. So all your counts for all your replicates, all your samples should be, for example, per 100 milliliter of soil or per 200 gram dry weight, whatever the case might be. In that way, you can make sure that it's comparable. Okay, so when we actually do load the data, we prepare an Excel sheet, and I'll show you the sheet in a minute. And then once it's been prepared, we go to the option of choose file, and then we search for it on our computer. In this case, I load it onto my desktop. It's called Ninja Dummy Data. It'll be the same dataset that you will be using. So you simply double click on it, open it, the program loads it. And what I did is just to include a few mistakes in the sheet. It's just stuff that I've picked up over time that must be corrected before you can actually load the data, before Ninja will actually allow you to continue. So you can see here there's a few issues. First of all, aphalenges, there's a spelling mistake. Aphalenges is not a F, it's a PH. So that's something we have to correct. Ilaphonema, there's no recommendation, but what happens sometimes is there's some genera that's not loaded into the database. Now you can report this. You can see here there's an option for reporting issues. So If taxa or taxon is not reported or not loaded in the database, then that's one way of trying to resolve the issue, is to report it. But alternatively, for example, this is a genus Elaphonema that I know is not loaded. I can go back to my sheet and simply replace Elaphonema with something like, with its family name, which is Cephalobidae, and that will have the same effect in terms of the calculation of the nematode base indices. Telenchus, I don't see anything wrong with it, so I'm going to have to go back to the Excel sheet to try and see what's going on here. So let's just pull this to the one side and let me open the data dummy set that I loaded. All right, here we go. So the first problem, as I mentioned, was Aphelenchus. All right, so there's actually an open column here that you can just remove. It shouldn't have an effect on the calculation. And let's remove that. Aphelenchus, you can see there was the spelling mistake. The F should be changed to PH, so that should be fine. Then there was Elaphonema. Let me just find that quickly. Here's Elaphonema. As I mentioned, I know that Elaphonema is not loaded into the database of Ninja, so I can replace that with Cephalobidae, and it should be able to pick it up and assign the same scoring, the CP and trophic yield value to it. And then the last issue that reported was Telenchus. Let me go have a look. All right, here's Telenchus. Now, this is a tricky one. It's not easy to see, and sometimes it's something that really can cause a few problems. But if you, for example, add a space after the taxon name in Excel, it'll report it as a spelling mistake. So you can see here that there's a space after Telenchus. So simply delete that space, hit the save button after you've made all your corrections, and that should do the trick. All right, so let's just go back here to column A and B real quick. As I mentioned originally, column A is really for your own convenience. You can add whatever additional descriptor information that you want. Column B is what Ninja will actually use to calculate the nematode base indices. In this case, it'll calculate an average with a deviation value for maze rotation, as these will be regarded as replicates. However, if I wanted each sample to be calculated separately, and I want to do, for example, stats afterwards using those replicate values, I can simply add, for example, a 1 after the first replicate, a 2 after the second, and a 3 after the third. However you want to do that, basically now Ninja knows they are unique identifiers and different samples to be calculated individually. Right, I can hit the save button again, and I should actually then close this Excel document. Right, now let's go back to Ninja again. Okay, so now we're still on the previously loaded web page. I can just go up to the URL bar and press enter again. It should reload the website. Remember, I told you it's real time, meaning that whatever you reload, it's reloading the page. It's basically removing all the data that you had loaded up onto it. All right, let's just repeat this process. We choose file. I'm loading the same data set again after, of course, the corrections were made. Let's give it a moment. Right, now you can see it gives me a sort of a summary of what's been done. All taxa names have been read correctly, so that's a good thing. There are some columns with identical taxa names, so I did that on purpose. There's Anaplectus, I added 2 columns with Anaplectus, and basically all the Ninja does is to summate the 2 columns. So it should not be a problem. It might just be that you read it in twice. If you read it in twice, of course, you're going to have to delete the one. But if you counted samples and, for example, you just accidentally replicated the taxon name, but it's not duplication, then it's fine. You can just leave it. Ninja has a function where it summates the data and then continues. Another important point, we're not going to go into depth here or really discuss it, but it does warn you that some of your data contains cyst or root knot nematodes. When you think about metabolic inference, metabolic footprints, remember that that's calculated using biomass values of adult females. So although you might have J2 samples of say Merodagami in your data set or what you actually counted, it will still use the mass value, or the biomass value of the adult female. So that will really boost that metabolic footprint value. So just something to consider. And then finally it says you may proceed to other tabs. All right, I'm not going to discuss the options on the left-hand side. It's a bit outside the scope of this practical, but you can do some alterations or changes to, for example, the functional or the feeding group of the taxa that you then loaded.